Okay, welcome everyone to Melbourne Career Expo 2025, LinkedIn for over 40s. Welcome back to those who are coming from the previous session, and just to let you know, the slides will be available. And for those of you who don't know me, my career started at Westpac in Adelaide 6 days after my last G12 exam, and I worked in the bank for 11 years before I moved to Melbourne, got a job, found out I was pregnant, got sacked, and basically haven't had a real job since. So I've done a lot of different roles over the years, and I'm a member of various professional associations. I'm also the author and publisher of 5 books. 2 of them are on the topic of LinkedIn, and you can download those via ResearchGate without logging in. So just keeps a record of how many people have viewed the slides. So you're welcome to check those out. So in this session, we're going to be going through a little bit of background on why we need a discussion around LinkedIn for over 40s, and go through some LinkedIn strategies and provide you with details of additional resources and answer questions. And if you scan this code, it will automatically generate an email, and I will make sure that I include that link down the bottom there, which is a link to all of my past Career Expo presentations. So that will be available to you. And quick questions I'm also happy to answer via email. All right, so why is this topic important? Well, ageism definitely exists in Australia. I don't suppose that's any surprise to you. And a lot of people try and fight the ageism argument by saying only put the last 10 years down on your resume or your LinkedIn profile. Now, I celebrated my 60th birthday this year, so I'm super excited by that. And my entire career is on my LinkedIn profile, right back to the very beginning in 1982 when I started working. So the only thing I have not included was I used to do babysitting as a teenager, but everything else has been included. And I do that for a very particular reason. I want people to know of my capacity and all of that experience. I don't want it to be limited to just what I've done over the last 10 years. And I also figure that, do I want to be rejected before an interview or after an interview? Because if they were going to reject me on the basis of age, why should I bother going to an interview and wasting my time if they were going to reject me because of age? So I'd rather them know my age up front, and if you want me, that's great, and if you don't want me, okay, no problem. And I also remember when I was in recruitment in my 20s, and I remember thinking anyone over the age of 30 was old, and that was my own thinking. And so I'm very conscious of the fact that obviously a lot of other people would feel that way too. You know, not much changes over time. So if we think about the people who are most likely to understand our value, it's probably people who are 10 years younger or 10 years older. So if I'm trying to sell myself to a 20-year-old, that's going to be much harder than if I sell myself to a 50-year-old. They're going to understand my value in perhaps a different way. And I actually have a number of clients in their 70s, so they're quite a bit older than me. One's nearly 80. So yeah, I really enjoy working with older people as well. Now, this is a really interesting statistic on the average age of retirement in Australia. So it says here that most people expect to retire at the age of 65.4, or after they turn 65, because the Australian pension doesn't come in until 67. But the reality is that most women end up retiring around 54, and most men around 59. So those numbers, if you're over 40, according to the average, we're actually very close to retirement. And I don't know about you, but I never ever want to retire. And I remember asking my 98-year-old grandmother, when did she slow down? And she said when she was 90, when she stopped playing lawn bowls. Now, I hate lawn bowls, so I won't be playing lawn bowls, but I guarantee you I will be active right up until my last breath. Also, another really interesting statistic from the Workplace Gender Equality Agency talks about when our peak earning capacity is. So it's around that 40-year age mark when we get the highest rate of income. Sadly, the highest rate for women is around 44. Men get to go through till 54, 10 years longer, but nevertheless, that peak has got to the peak, and then it's sort of a gradual decline from there. On average, that's not to say everybody is like that, but definitely in terms of on average that is possible. So you can see there with the yellow being the women and the navy being the men, they've obviously got that significant pay gap, which is why this gender pay equity process has come in Australia. So the organisations with a certain number of employees must report on the salaries of their staff. So what I'm going to go through this afternoon is all of these themes. Some of these were discussed earlier, and some of them are more of a discussion on how to use LinkedIn. So I'm not going to go into as much of the detail of what needs to be on your LinkedIn profile. It's going to be more about some of the strategies you can use. So I obviously believe it's extremely important to complete your entire LinkedIn profile. I want to appear in search results so that people, if they're looking for someone with my skills, I come up. Now the benefit of me filling in my LinkedIn profile in detail is I also come up in Google search, and I also come up in AI search results. So it helps me in lots of areas. And here I've changed my photo to almost my hair colour. So late last year I stopped dyeing my hair because it was breaking and falling to bits. And this was the first photo I took after I'd had a treatment to sort of transition to grey hair. And I'm going to take another photo as soon as the grey has grown up. But so this is my interim photo, but it's not the dark brown hair that I had before. So I'm sort of warming people up to the idea that my appearance is changing. But again, it's actually not about the grey hair. It's about the energy and enthusiasm that I convey. And by the way, I started going grey at 25, so it was way before 40. So, many of us have had grey hair a lot longer. But what we need to convince people of, as I said, is not our age or our appearance. It's our energy, enthusiasm, and our value that we can bring to an organisation. The headline, which is directly underneath your name, is the most important field. So if you want to appear in search results, that has to include your keywords. And I've mentioned some statistics that you need to get. So minimum of 500 connections, a minimum of 100 views per 90 days, a minimum of 7 appearances in search results in 7 days, a minimum of 6 recommendations, both given and received, and also 20 votes for your top skills. And that will help the algorithm and people understand your value, and that's about as much as I'll talk about the LinkedIn profile. Now the next thing that I showed earlier was how to use the scan code feature on your phone so that you can connect with other people on LinkedIn. So the idea here is you press in the search box in the LinkedIn app, and then you'll see some little squares on the top right hand side, and that will bring up your QR code and you can scan. And so anybody you meet here today as you go around, feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn. But also with your LinkedIn profile, make sure when you log in, you look at the content in the news feed and you like some of the posts that are relevant. You add comments every so often. And also my 3 favourite words are from now on. Not I love you, from now on. As I said, just connect with everyone. Like the more people in your network, the better. You can have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. So I'm sure you've all got plenty of room to add more people to your LinkedIn network. Because some years ago, my tax accountant said to me, Sue, you need to earn more money before the 30th of June. And my tax accountant said, go out and talk to 3 of your clients and ask them if they would be happy to prepay you. So one client gave me $750 up front, one gave me $2,200, and one gave me $5,500. So where can you get $9,000 in a week if you don't have a network? That was the value to me of having a network. Of course, I've completed all the work and I wasn't hit by a Melbourne tram, so I was very anxious about that. I wanted to make sure I could do the work before something happened to me. But other things you can do is make sure you respond to any messages you get promptly, make sure you respond to any connection requests, because if somebody asks to connect and you don't connect with them, it vanishes. So you lose that opportunity. So do that on LinkedIn and respond to any notifications that you get as well. Now, apart from just being active on the platform, you can also engage and be a nice person on LinkedIn. So if you've got people in your network and they've got skills, it's nice to be able to give them votes for the skills that you've seen them undertake, and also to give recommendations. You can be really strategic about this. So maybe you know someone in your industry and you've worked with them and they're really good at their job and everybody knows them. So if you're connected on LinkedIn and you write them a recommendation, anytime someone looks at that person, they're going to see your recommendation. So that could be a good strategic move for you to do as well. Now, just remember, anything put in writing can be used in court. And the example I like to use is the project manager. We all know this person. They were on time, on budget, and everybody hated their guts because they were a micromanager. So I wouldn't say that that person was a good project manager. I would say I worked with this person at XYZ company, they were a project manager, and they were on time and on budget, and I wish them all the best in the future. I would not say they were a good project manager. I would just talk to the things I had actually observed. Likewise, I was working with a lawyer client once, and I showed this lawyer a LinkedIn profile. And this LinkedIn profile had 160 recommendations that they'd received and 0 that they had given. And I think most of us would assume that's a pretty selfish person to receive all that praise and not give anybody else praise. And what this lawyer said to me, as any good lawyer does, they have a great argument. They said, well, clearly no one asked. So we have to ask for recommendations. Don't just wait until someone gives you one. Ask for it. And when you visit their LinkedIn profile and choose request a recommendation, you can say, hi Mary, I'm updating my LinkedIn profile. It'd be fabulous if you could write a recommendation for me. Could you please talk about my skills in the areas of blah, 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 so Mary knows what to write, and then send it off. And in most cases, people are happy to do it. But did anyone wake up this morning and say, I've got to check LinkedIn and write 3 recommendations? No? Nobody? No, I didn't think so. So, you know, this is why this lawyer had a really good point. Ask for a recommendation. Now, when you are looking at the news feed, if you're a content creator, you want people to stop scrolling and look at your content. So likewise, if you stop scrolling and look at content related to what you're interested in, the algorithm understands that this is what you're interested in. So if you watch that video about your topic, or you stop and look at the picture and read all the content, then the algorithm gets to know this is what you're interested in, and it's sort of like a gentle way of helping the system understand what you value and what would be of value to you. Now, LinkedIn networking. The first group of people you want to network with are the people who are already in your LinkedIn network. So you can click on My Network and go click, click, click through all the people, or you can go into your settings, data privacy, get a copy of your data, and you can request a full data archive from LinkedIn of everything you've done on the platform. Now, one of those will be a list of all your connections. First name, last name, current job, current company, and the date you connected with all of those people. So you could scroll through that list and say, oh my goodness, that person works in my field, they may know someone in Melbourne, and they can provide a referral. So even for people who are from overseas, go back to your friends in any country and say, do you know anyone in the Asia Pacific region that I could talk to? And believe it or not, I heard of a person in Melbourne who got a job via a contact in London. So, you know, don't assume if they're not in Melbourne they don't know someone. It could be anyone you know already that could provide a referral to you. And then when you, as I said, when you get that email, click on the link and download it. When you look at that list of connections, it might also remind you, oh, there was at least 20 other people I worked with in that last organisation that I'm not connected to on LinkedIn. So you can go out and reach out to those people as well. Or the organisation that you worked, you can see who's in the role now, connect to them. So it just gives you a little bit of a prompt. And I'll show you some other ways at the end. Now, when you go looking for people on LinkedIn, there's certain searches, and a lot of the people who appear in your search are based on who you're already connected to. So you can do a more advanced search looking for people to network with via LinkedIn. And so here I've just typed in the word project manager, and if you click on the right where it says all filters, you can choose by location and organisation or university. There's all these extra filters you can use to find someone who might be suitable. So there's the search within LinkedIn itself. And as I demonstrated in the previous session, you can also do something called a Google Advanced Search. So the benefit of this is it searches the whole LinkedIn database. So you just type into Google Advanced Search, and then you put in quotation marks each word that you want to see on someone's LinkedIn profile, and then you go down to the bottom box and choose linkedin.com, and it will go searching the entire LinkedIn database. And if you're aligned, you can connect with people. So you can again target ideally people of a similar age range to you. You can try some younger people as well. But as I said earlier, when you're over 40, those people who are more likely to value your experience are somebody that is similar to you. Now, there are some definite no-nos that I believe, once you're over 40, you've got to think about. And I cannot tell you how many people tell me, I have 24 years of experience in such and such. Now, you imagine the 20-year-old me who thought somebody over 30 was old, and you tell me you've got 24 years of experience, I'm just going to go straight on to the next person. And for others, it might be too much experience. For some, it's not enough. Maybe they want 40 years of experience. I don't know. So I just never, ever mention the years of experience, because you are very quickly labelled a dinosaur because it's sort of too much. So what I'd rather you do is say, I have experience in A, B, C, D, E, and now we're a guru, right? Rather than a dinosaur. So try and think of it, not years of experience, which is just some nebulous date. Think about it, the actual skills you have, and talk to those skills. Now, obviously, LinkedIn is public, and anything you put online is public. So you don't want to spill the company's secrets publicly. So you can't say, I saved the company $1.2 million. But you could say you saved them 24% on their annual expenditure. And nobody knows what the annual expenditure is, but they know you saved 24%. And the reason you would talk to that is because if you've done that in the previous job, there's a pretty good chance you can do that in the next job. So it's an example of something that they can relate to. Now, in all my years on LinkedIn, I joined on the 21st of December 2003, I've only had one issue. And this was when somebody wrote an inappropriate comment on one of my LinkedIn posts. And because I teach social media, I immediately took a screenshot and said to this, I replied to this person and I said, I'm happy to discuss this with you via direct message. And I looked at their LinkedIn profile, and I won't tell you what industry they were in because that will be incriminating, but let's just say it was a sensitive industry and I knew this person may have some psychological challenges, okay? So when I messaged this person directly, they threatened my children. And I could tell because, you know, of this sensitive industry, this person was having a problem. So I did exactly what you should do in this situation, was contact the police and ask them to do a welfare check on this person. And when I rang the local police station, they already knew this person and they went round to see them. Now this person then messaged me back and said, thank you for contacting the police, I knew you would. And I thought, okay, this is just not on. They should not have done that in the first place. So then what I did is I wrote back to them and I said, look, I understand you had a concern, but it was inappropriate for you to threaten my children. And I encourage you in the future to get involved in voluntary work and enjoy where you live. Because they lived in this beautiful part of Australia. And they turned around and replied and said, yes, you're right, I was happiest when I was doing voluntary work. So in 2001, 2025, 24 years of being online, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, because I am always friendly and professional online, and I automatically would take a screenshot of anything that was inappropriate. So I'm here to, I never would respond to somebody rudely. Like I had somebody last week, where does this information come from? And so I politely suggest, well, it's based on a lot of lived experience, and it's been, this is how I've come up with that answer. I don't say, well, what are you criticising me for? I wouldn't do that. Always solution focused. Now, there is a LinkedIn user agreement, and there's section 8, which is the do's and don'ts. And I do recommend that you check that out. It doesn't take long to read, but it's a good little tip. And then on the top of the screen, there's a link to the professional community policies. So if you're not a regular user of LinkedIn, it just gives you a bit of an insight into what you can do on LinkedIn. Now, we'll be opening the floor to questions, so keep your questions in mind. I'm happy to answer anything related to LinkedIn or careers. Now, there's a podcast run here in Victoria called Wisepreneurs, wise and then preneurs, like entrepreneurs, and it's all about what to do with your career after 60, and a lot of the time they talk about going into consulting and consulting back to an organisation. And if you want to do that, you can start just with a LinkedIn profile. You don't need a website, a company website. You can just start with a LinkedIn profile. So there was one lady who came to a course I was running on how to build a website, and she had already gone out and purchased a website, and you're not going to believe it, but she spent $20,000 on a website. And all she wants to do is edit PhD papers. So how many PhD papers would she have to edit to make her $20,000 back? That's a lot of work, right? So I believe you can start your own business just with a LinkedIn profile. So if you want to set yourself up that way, you can. You can also create a LinkedIn company page. You can have your own little logo on it. You could even call your company page your own name. So I have a Sue Ellson company page, and I've got my own little logo on that. So I work for Sue Ellson. So now I've got a logo next to my name, and it looks like a reputable business. There is also, on LinkedIn, you can choose open to work, and you can choose open to providing services. So another thing you can do is turn on open to providing services, so you will appear in more search results as a result of being in the open to work category and in the open to providing services category. The choices are not great, but you can add 10 categories, whereas you can only add 5 job titles in the open to work section. And also, a lot of people, like I had this one student who came to me, she was a really clever scientist, and she just had some children, and she wanted to get back to work, and she wanted to work school hours. But if she did a school hours job, her hourly rate would probably drop to about $35 an hour, where what she was doing before was, let's say it was $75 an hour. So I said to her, rather than doing, just work during school hours, what about if you work 2 or 3 days a week at full rate somewhere and got childcare for those 3 days, and then you can have the other 2 days off, and you still end up with the same salary and you stay in your career. So these are other ways to think about it. If somebody can't afford you at your full rate now that you've got extra experience, just reduce the hours and they get the benefit of your expertise, but they don't have to pay for 5 days a week. And you could do 3 days a week here and 2 days a week somewhere else if you want full-time work. And also, if you are in a situation where you've been working full-time for many, many years, and then all of a sudden you find yourself not working at your current age, it could be a really difficult transition to be going from working to not working. So anything that you can do that will give you that transition focus, where you can do something part-time or casual or just doing something to get out of the house every day, I do definitely recommend that as well. Now, one of my favourites, everybody talks about working from home. I like to talk about working close to home. It's a much better way to work because if you want to go home for lunch, you can. If you've got a fast appointment, you don't have to travel, 90 minutes to get home and then go to the appointment. It just makes life so much easier. So I want you to get on Google Maps and look at all the businesses in your local area and see who could be interested in hearing from you and you reaching out to someone. So I did a contract with a very large mining company who was based in St Kilda Road, and one of the people there thought the only job they could get with their expertise was in the city. But where they lived was way out in Officer, which is I think 60 k's from Melbourne, so it's a really long way to travel. And so anyway, what they ended up, I suggested, is that they look for all the large businesses out in Dandenong or at least that side of the city, and then they don't have to travel all the way into the city. And they had never considered it. They just assumed that all the big jobs were in town. But quite often, there's a lot of bigger firms out in suburbs that we just don't go looking for because we just assume that they're in the CBD. Now, when you find those organisations, you look for them on LinkedIn and you follow the company page and you click the notification bell and you choose all new posts. So that way you're more likely to see the content that they produce, and you can network with the people who have engaged with their content, so you can see who's liked it, and you can find out their employees and try and connect with some of those. And you can also visit their website and see if they have a careers section. So back when I was at Westpac, we never advertised for jobs because we got so many people apply directly to us that we didn't need to advertise. But if you look at the website and you understand what the organisation is like, then you can tailor some sort of approach letter to them and say, I've looked you up on LinkedIn, I've checked you out on your website, I understand this is what you do, I'd love to have a conversation with you. So another client was a guy from Ireland who'd spent some time in Papua New Guinea, and he was really capable and he worked in telecommunications. And he was so smart, he could play the piano for money. Like, that's how clever he was. So he moved to Sydney and he got a job playing the piano so he could have enough money to earn. And then what he did is he got my advice and he developed a strategy to try and shop himself into an organisation who could use his skills. And he contacted a whole bunch of recruiters and he had them on spreadsheets and he diaried to follow up with each one. He gave them bottles of wine. And I said, hang on a minute, you shouldn't give people bottles of wine. And I said, why don't you give them chocolates? And he said, Sue, I'm a man. If I give a woman chocolates, I'll be in trouble. So I said, okay, stick to the wine. But he ended up finding, through his various techniques, a way to have a job created for his capabilities, because he just took that job search process to the absolute next level. He didn't wait for a job to appear and apply for it, because up to 90% of jobs are never even advertised. He actually created a job for himself through his research, and he just kept playing the piano for money in the meantime. So you can be, very creative in the way that you go about this. Now, another fantastic feature of LinkedIn is LinkedIn Learning. So what you can do is, if you go to your local library and get a library card, you can then log on to the library website and do LinkedIn Learning courses for free, no cost whatsoever. Or if you have LinkedIn Premium, you can also access it that way, but that costs you money. Now, I have a friend who was a database administrator, which is basically a computer programmer. And in the beginning of their career, they studied statistics at uni, but they dropped out. So they wanted to move from a database administrator to a data scientist, which is a completely different role. So what they did is a whole bunch of little short courses, and they got the skills to be a data scientist, and they went from a $150,000 a year job as a database administrator to a $150,000 a year job as a data scientist, just by doing some little short micro credentials. So you don't have to go back to uni and pay for a postgraduate, master's, whatever course. You can just do little short courses, update your skills and apply for something new. So definitely consider that. It also looks good if you've done some study recently or you're continually learning. I also recommend that you learn personal skills. So in the early career, Westpac sent me off to an assertiveness skills course. And I thought, why do I need assertiveness skills? And that to date has been the best course I've ever done. Because you know what it's like when you're dealing with a difficult person and they just keep pestering you. You've got to have techniques to deal with that. So when you do those short courses, don't just look at technical skills, look at things like communication or leadership or management or something like that as well. And yeah, make sure you're just always willing to learn. I did some research because I often appear on radio, and what they found was that employers will happily pay for young people to do training, but they won't pay for older people to do training, which I think is ridiculous because the young person will leave way before the older person does. So I think it's madness. But if you're in a category where you want to learn something and you're working somewhere now, ask for some training. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing that because you can use it. And because I got married at 20, when I was at Westpac, everybody assumed I'd run off and have babies, and I stayed there for 11 years. Meanwhile, a whole bunch of blokes left way before me. So don't be afraid to ask for those training opportunities. Now the next thing is we all need to update and maintain our digital competency. So digital literacy means I have a LinkedIn profile. Digital competency means I'm using LinkedIn in a way that supports my purpose and objectives. So there's two very different things. So you definitely need to have your LinkedIn profile up to date. Now I believe if you're looking for a senior role or senior leadership role, you need to have your own name website. Now I'm not going to chip you on this because my first website went online in 2001 and my SueEllson.com website didn't go online till 2012. So it took me 11 years to get around to this. LinkedIn I was on in 2003. So, but if you really are genuinely interested in doing, you know, next level digital competency, you've got your own name website. You can put whatever you like on it, way more than what you can do just on LinkedIn. And then again, you can showcase your capacity. So I write poetry. I have over 150 poems on my website, and I've got a page on my website which talks about where they've been republished. They've been put in books, in theatre plays, I've had music written to them, I've had them in newsletters, they've gone out on Instagram posts, they've gone all over the world simply because I was able to publish on my own website. So that might be something else for you to think about. Another person I met had been extremely successful in their industry. And so the journalists loved writing stories about them because they were very successful. Then one day this person went bankrupt. And those same journalists who were happy to talk about the good news also talked about all of the bad news and how this person had failed. So every time you Google this person's name, all of the bad stories came to the top because obviously people clicked on them and looked at those stories. So what I did was I did a huge search as far and wide as I could find to find all of this person's good content. I then created a Google business account and in the back end told Google where all the good stuff was and none of the bad stuff. And then people started clicking on the good stuff and all that bad stuff dropped down to page 2 of search results. And they often make the joke, where do you hide a dead body? On page 2 of Google search results because no one looks there, right? So, but this was a real problem for this person because as you can imagine, they were really successful, riding high, everybody wanted to talk about them. And when they Googled themselves, all they saw was this person went bankrupt, this person went bankrupt, and they lost their confidence. And so you've got to remember that some of this is all a psychological mind game, but if you Google yourself and the only thing that comes up is some terrible thing, you've got to have other content online that people could look at, so that goes down to page 2. Obviously everything that is in writing can be used in court, so don't say anything bad in those recommendations. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe anything I put online is private, no matter how secure or locked your profile is. Somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and stuff can be found out. So I do not ever publish anything I do not want public. I once met a lady who worked in the music industry and had a very wild past. It was so wild she changed her name because she didn't want to be associated with that bad background. Always be respectful, and as I said, screenshot any concerns and keep records of it. So they're my tips for LinkedIn for over 40s. You can get more professional support from practitioners of the Career Development Association of Australia. I do recommend that you pay by the hour first to make sure that you're a fit with that person, and they may have connections in your area of interest. And it's been proven that if you get professional help, you're more likely to secure an aligned role, an aligned rate of pay, much quicker and easier than if you try and do all of this yourself. But, you know, I've shown you some free resources that you can use, and then there's some additional ones here. The My Future website will show you what your salary range could be in your industry. So if you've been working for a small firm, they're probably paying you under the normal rate, so you can look up My Future and find out whether you're entitled to more. There's a Finding a Job guide put out by the Victorian Government. The Career Development Association talks about how to get career support. If you do lose your job and you're offered access to an employee assistance program or an outplacement program, please go to it. I run LinkedIn fundamentals workshops for people who've been outplaced through directioneering, and they all tell me how valuable it was to spend that 2 hours together. So use up all those resources. If you're doing some study, there's usually a careers department at the university, so make an appointment to go and see them. Although don't let them convince you just to do another course. Get some, actual opportunities out of it. There's local community groups, neighbourhood houses, council programs. I run workshops for the local council. So there's lots of things available in your local community as well. And if you'd like to check out any webinars and recordings, you can just click on that link, and there's no cost. You don't have to log in. You can just watch them whenever it suits you, and it also includes the slides. I've also done a lot of other presentations for Melbourne Career Expo. So this is the ones for the last 3 years. These slides will be on my website tomorrow, so you can download them all there. And I also would like to encourage you, if you found value, I really appreciate reviews. You can find me on Google or on Facebook or on my website, and you're most welcome to do that, to say thank you. It's about 5 hours last night I spent putting these slides together. I didn't get to bed till after midnight because I try and make sure that the content is really relevant for each audience. And of course I'm doing it for free. This is a voluntary thing that all of us are doing with the Career Development Association of Australia. So, any questions? Oh, she this morning, so you go first. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, do I have any tips if you want to move up in your current role? So that little presentation about how to ask for a promotion, that definitely goes into a lot of that, right? So first of all, I do my research. So I look up My Future and find out for a comparable role what I should be earning. Like, you need to know what range you should be being paid for what you're doing. Secondly, I'd make sure my LinkedIn profile is fully complete, because if the decision maker goes to look at you online, you want them to remember what you did. Thirdly, do you have a performance review system? Right, so I'd look at your last performance review and the things they measured and your current job description, and I would prepare a very comprehensive document which talks about how you've done every single one of those in your job, as well as anything additional you've ended up doing as well. So there's a full record of all the extra things you've done, And then I would suggest you make a time to discuss that with your manager and say, I'd just like to have a run through of some of the things I've been doing. So I did this with a person who, it was just after COVID, but during COVID, most of their role disappeared because it was public facing, it was at a museum, and then they had to do all this new stuff. They had to do online tours, they had to organise extra bookings, they had to source new sources of revenue. There was all this extra work that they had to do on top of what they were doing previously. So I got them to document all of that. And of course they went to the meeting and they got a pay rise. So you've got to be able to prove it. The other thing you've got to be able to do is if you want a $10,000 pay rise per year, you've got to show that you've added at least that much value to the enterprise, because they've got to find that money from somewhere. So my daughter, I've taught her every year, ask for a pay rise, right? And also show how what you've done has increased the revenue or decreased the expenses of the organisation. Yeah, it's still the same thing. So you might have been able to improve the efficiency of processes that you were doing there, or adopted new technology, or there's all sorts of things that you could talk to. Yeah, lower staff turnover, higher retention rates, all of those kind of things. Yeah, more OD, more L&D, something like that. Yeah. Or that you've joined a professional association, you paid a membership fee, you've done more PD yourself, all of those sorts of things you can talk to. Yeah. Your question?
I always receive messages from LinkedIn on next if I want to promote to premium.
Yeah.
So is it really worthwhile to pay that money?
Okay, so the question is it worthwhile to have LinkedIn Premium? Not unless you've fully updated your LinkedIn profile. Because just paying for premium, if you don't have the keywords on your LinkedIn profile, you're still not going to come up in search results. Now, I have had a free LinkedIn account up until 3 years ago, and yet I made my living off of LinkedIn, right? But the only reason I decided to pay for it is because I make my money off LinkedIn. I feel like I should support the platform. It gives me a gold logo next to my profile, so it gives me status. Thank you. It also helps me appear higher in search results. It gives me more in-mail direct messages. One of the features I really love about it is it lets me set up an auto response on my inbox. So if somebody messages me, it says I will respond within 24 hours. Meanwhile, here's a couple of links. And I love that away message feature. It also lists you as a higher level candidate when you apply for a job. And I think you get more searches, so you can search beyond first and second level connections. But most people don't need any of that. So update profile first, and I never felt guilty about having a free profile, because the more help I give to people, the better it is for the platform. So yeah, we're providing value by giving people access to us. So don't feel like you have to pay for it. And if you do pay for it, even you get the 1 month free trial, they will ask for your credit card. And if you don't cancel it, they will continue charging you and you cannot get a refund. So if you want to cancel it, make sure you do it after the 30 days. But if you update it all and then use the features and then cancel it after a month, it might be worth trying. Also, if you do pay for premium, you can sometimes give 2 months free premium to someone else. So make sure you pass on the favour if you do have it.
So I'm a tech networking, so after I update the profile, what are some next steps that I can do once I get home?
Right, okay, so, and you want to network, and who do you want to reach?
So I am transitioning into project management or product management, but I probably need to do some more research about what that entails, and probably find some experience.
Yes, okay. So I would suggest that the people who you would network with are the people who are going to be able to help you the most. So you've got to imagine who has the connections or the skills or the knowledge that would help me. So it could be some random coach that just gives you, you can do it, mate, and you know, a couple of techniques. Or it could be somebody who's actually in the industry. So you might want to find them specifically. Did you see me do the Google Advanced Search before? Yeah. So you would look for those people doing that and then reach out and connect with them. Now, 10 people a day, maximum of 100 a week, and just start connecting with people and then following up. And you can do all of that online and just asking for that interview. Now, the other thing is LinkedIn has events. So if you go to linkedin.com/events, you can register for events that are coming up and you can see who else has registered for that event. And there might be someone in that list of events that could be helpful to you. The problem is events is not sorted by location, so a lot of them will be international. So you might want to try and find other events locally. So you can look on Eventbrite or Humanitics and you can go to events. So I was at a networking event last night and I make it a mission every time I go to an event, I bring out my phone, I use the scan code feature and I must connect with a minimum of 3 people. Like, I'm not allowed to go home until I've got 3 people added to my network, right?
I need one more person.
One more person, yes, come and connect. So I always make it a mission to do 3, but you can't connect with 20 people. Like, you're not going to remember any of them. You want to develop a little bit of a rapport, so I always aim for 3. And then in your case, I would follow up the next day. It's so lovely to meet you at the networking event. Can I organise a time to have a 10-minute chat, just let you know what I'm looking for and see if you might be able to recommend anyone. And most people are happy to have a 10-minute chat and just do it that way. But I have a policy of connecting with everyone I meet. And people will tell me, oh, Sue, I met you at this event 8 years ago. For some strange reason, they remember. I unfortunately do not. But because I connected with them on LinkedIn and I keep putting content out regularly, when the time comes, they're ready to reach out to me. So it's not an overnight success type of thing unless you're doing the personal contact. But it definitely helps build your network and at the rate you feel comfortable with. And most people, yeah. And what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. Just try again, you know. But if you sent out 100 connection requests and only 4 people accepted because you had a crappy LinkedIn profile and they didn't know what they were really connecting with, that's not going to look good for you. So really make sure you've updated your LinkedIn profile first before you start the networking, so people have a sense of what you're all about. Now, one of the things that you can do on LinkedIn is you can see when someone joined LinkedIn. And this is another way to verify what the person is about. So you can do this on anyone. So you click either the resources button or the more button, and it says about this profile. And there you can, whoops, sorry, it vanished. About this profile. And you can see I joined in December 2003. So it's pretty likely I am who I say I am. So that's another little talking point for you to verify someone and make sure that they're reliable. The thing we have to be careful about is when we're looking for a job, we don't usually ask an expert. We ask all our friends and family. And if we ask those people, they don't necessarily have job search skills, and they're talking to you about it from their own personal perspective. And most people don't have job search skills. So just bear in mind that, you know, what we're teaching you here today is job search skills that you can use for this job, the next job, the following one. And once you learn them, you can just rinse and repeat and really focus your career and go in the direction that you want to go, or attract the right opportunities to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Before you mentioned it's better to have your list of experience, so you have a array of experience rather than a time frame of experience. But I'm probably wrong, but it seems like you need to put the start and end date.
You do. So what I mean is, if in the about section, right, so this is about years of experience, right? If I said in my little narrative here, I have been providing LinkedIn services since 2008, or I calculated the years, what is it, 13 or something. 13 years I've been providing LinkedIn support. that could be too many or not enough. So I don't mention the 13 years. I might say since 2008, but the dates will work out from my LinkedIn profile, so I don't have to mention.
So you don't have to double up.
No, you don't have to say it at all. You just say, I have skills in A, B, C, D, and E, and all of a sudden you're a guru. And if they want to check it out, they can see where LinkedIn is throughout my whole profile, and it will count the years automatically.
So you're suggesting that you don't put your work experience in your dates in the...
No, I'm suggesting you do put it in. I just wouldn't edit this to say I have 23 years of experience in social media. I wouldn't say that particular statement. Correct. Because if you didn't put the dates in, I would be really suspicious. And I prefer the month and year, not just the year, because then otherwise there's little gaps and people don't know what's been going on in between the gaps. Good question. Thanks for clarifying. Any other questions?
Sorry, I know it's probably on your page, but what is your, what do you do? What do you say to them?
Oh, what do I do at the top? Okay, so my headline. So my headline is my label. So if you came up to me at a networking event and you said, Sue, what do you do? I'd say, I'm an independent LinkedIn specialist. So hopefully you'll remember that, because I said independent, so I don't work for LinkedIn. I mentioned LinkedIn and my level of competency is specialist. So that's my label. We all know you should label jars, not people, but people forget who you are. If I said I was a plumber, you would easily remember that. But if I say, well, I help people with LinkedIn and I build websites and I do marketing, I do training, I blah, 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 nobody's going to remember all of that. So I've decided the best label, where the most work's going to come for me, is from being an independent LinkedIn specialist. And then all those other words after that are other combinations. So it could be LinkedIn practitioner, LinkedIn trainer, LinkedIn speaker, LinkedIn coach, LinkedIn author. You know, it could be any other combination of any of those words, or it could be one of those words instead, so that people could find me based on what they're trying to look for. So none of the words are repeated, but you can see here, I've had 964 people look at me in the last 90 days, and I've appeared in 747 search results in 7 days. So that gives me a much better chance of being found for what I do. And then when people look at it, they look at my profile and they say, fantastic, and they contact me, or they look at it and say, there's too much information, I can't cope, and they leave. And I don't have to answer their queries because they were not a fit, because my profile's been written in that way. So, as an example, when I was running Newcomers Network for people who are new to Melbourne, I'd have all these people from foreign countries say, I'm arriving on such and such a date, and I'd like a job as a mechanical engineer immediately. And they expect me to basically pick them up at the airport, drive them here and give them a job, all for nothing. And I'm thinking, do you do your mechanical engineering for nothing? Why should I be helping you for nothing? And then one person, they booked an appointment with me in Sydney and thought the government was paying for me to come and help them. So thank goodness I checked before I caught the train to Una Whoop to help them out. So anyway, what I did, after all this nonsense of randoms contacting me that I was not able to assist, because I do heaps of stuff for free. I have heaps of content for free, my books are for free, everything's for free. So if you need help, there's plenty there. But I can't provide one-on-one personal professional advice for free as well. Otherwise I don't eat, right? So what I did was, in this section here about, you can see there's a link there to services and pricing. So it's not clickable, but it's really obvious that I charge. So that stops all those tire kickers who are not prepared to pay for professional support that I've spent hours and hours, you know, of lived experience and education. I go to between 1 and 4 events every week, and I've been doing that since the year 2000. So I do a lot of learning to make sure I can provide the best advice to people. So yeah, so I put that on there, and that means, you know, I don't get all those random inquiries from overseas engineers anymore, or anybody else. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You want people to be able to make the buying decision themselves and access. So here it says, if you want something for free, you just go to that, or self-managed, and so on and so forth. So people are quite clear. Now what I will show you is my daughter's profile as well, and I have her permission to do that. Her about section is written slightly differently because she was looking just for jobs previously. So she talks in there about her skills. So again, if you're looking for that promotion, you can sort of summarise that data in there, and that can be really helpful as well, because it's very easy to read and very scan friendly on a mobile device. So people can interpret that information much quicker and easier than they can in the narrative. That's, just a lot of sentences.
Is the she and her thing
Important.
has to be there?
No, it doesn't have to be there. So some years ago in Australia, there was a big emphasis on making sure we use the right pronouns for people. And I've always been a cisgender female, so my sexuality is I like males, whatever. And so I don't feel the need to describe the fact that I'm a she, her. But the reason I have it on my LinkedIn profile is to be in solidarity with the people who feel that the gender pronoun is important to them. So that's why I've chosen to put it on my profile. Not because I feel like I need to state it, I don't feel I need to, but I do it in solidarity for those people. But there is no requirement whatsoever for you to do that. And so if you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel it's necessary, you do not have to do it. You also do not have to verify your LinkedIn profile, right? So see here, Carmen's profile has been verified and my profile has also been verified, but I verified it using a work email address. If you have to verify it using your passport, you have to download a third-party app and scan the chip of your passport. Now, it made me cringe as an ex-banker to do that, but I had to battle test the system so that I could help my clients understand it. It is absolutely not necessary to verify your LinkedIn profile. But I do encourage you to add all of your work email addresses to your account and never ever take them off. So if you go into the back end of here, I've got previous email addresses that I've used and I keep them on my account so that nobody else can add those email addresses to their account. And I don't accidentally create a duplicate account because all of my email addresses are on here. So you never need to remove an email address. You always just change the primary email address. Yeah, left the organisation, leave it on. Unless you work for the government, because the government says you're not allowed to add a government email. But the rest, just leave them all on. Because that's how I got verified, was via the NetExpat email address.
You only need one to be verified.
Yes. But if you keep all of them on that account, you won't accidentally create a duplicate. And also, if LinkedIn is trying to match you up by people who've emailed you with that email, it sort of helps LinkedIn work out who you may know. So here under my network, it will show me people I may know, and that could be based on my email address because somebody else's LinkedIn profile has that email address. Does that make sense? So here, we know all these people, more suggestions for you. Yeah, so there's all these people here that could be based off of email.
How people like really trying to sell something, reach out to you to like it.
Yeah.
And at some point, like, yeah, it just feels like it's
It does. Okay, so LinkedIn has a number of algorithms that are designed to stop bad behaviour. So if people are spamming, that will get picked up fairly quickly. I have a take no prisoners attitude. If somebody annoys me, I report them immediately. If I basically connect with anyone who's in Australia until they annoy me, and then I will remove them or I will even block them. Because, as I said, I do not want to be spammed. And LinkedIn does not want you to be spammed either, because then you'll leave the platform. You can't necessarily block it from happening, but another thing that I like to do is encourage you to go into your settings and click on notifications and one of the things that I don't want is a whole bunch of emails every time somebody wants to connect with me, because I mean I get way too many emails. So I've gone into here with connecting with others, and where is it? Invitations to connect, and I've turned off email notifications. So you can go through all of these and turn off all the emails you don't want, and you might like to go into advertising data as well and change some of the settings there to reduce some of those sponsored ads that you might be receiving as well.
That's all available.
On the back end, non-paid, yep, absolutely. But look at it on your laptop or desktop rather than the phone or tablet, because it's a bit harder to work through on the small device. Yeah. And it's a different thing.
Started, putting out like working in the coaching area, and then I get emails from other coaches saying, "Oh, I love your work. Really like what you do." But they don't really know anything what I'm doing, and then they really want to sell me, coaching courses or something like that. And so I'm actually just what they've done in the past. I have just connected, and then I'll come back trying to sell me. And so I'm not sure.
Are these Australian-based ones or international ones? Australian. Yeah, they may have all but gone through the same LinkedIn training that says annoy everybody, which I don't do. I'm very clear about. Like, I prefer to attract business to me rather than push myself on someone. So that's why I believe in optimizing the profile first and then doing it. So you may need to decide, like if I looked at a coach's profile and I saw that they nail it and scale it and I would just go, oh, and just not connect in the first place. So you probably need to be a little bit more critical of how they describe themselves on their LinkedIn profile and make a little bit more of a higher barrier for people to get through. The other thing you can do, I'm not sure where it is, it's one of these settings, but you can change your connect button to a follow button. So that way they follow you, and unless they know to press more, they won't connect with you. So you're less likely to get those direct messages. Does that make sense? So on my LinkedIn profile, I have a follow button. Right? When you visit mine, it says follow. Because I can have an unlimited number of followers, but only 30,000 connections. So you can change it so that the button here, when you look at me, it normally says follow. So I need to show it to you. Sorry, it's going off. But what you will always see on the resources or the more button, you'll see a connect option there. So if you're wanting to connect with someone, yeah. The other thing is, if you're in coaching, it's really important that you describe your ideal client that you like to work with. So for instance, if you specialise in people in the health industry or something like that, make that message really, really clear. Because it doesn't mean you wouldn't coach someone who wasn't in health. It would just mean that people know you as a health coach or, a health-related coach, and that can be a way to sort of sift people out as well. Whereas if you're more of a generic coach, you're more likely to perhaps get some of that general stuff happening.
Just to be clear, not responding is fine.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
not
Ignore.
responding.
No, just ignore.
Hi, it's so nice, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I see. No, I would still respond.
I really like the work you're doing and connect, and I'm like, I don't want to connect. I actually don't want to connect with a lot of coaches.
I actually just say no thanks. But I do try and respond to every message. So this is my automatic response. So I aim to reply to you. So I've got, on the premium account, I've got that auto response. But there was somebody who contacted me recently, AD, I don't know this person from anything, and I said, thanks for reaching out, but I'm not interested. Because that's the automatic, press a button and it goes off. So I just say, or I say no thanks, and that's it. But I do respond because I want the algorithm to know that I check my messages and that I respond to messages, because then the algorithm says Sue's a good LinkedIn citizen, and if people message her, they will get a response.
That's interesting because they're not immediately saying, I want to market to you. They're doing
we've all been taught to be people pleasers, you know, haven't we? And to be nice to people. But people are rude. And if people are rude, well, we need to be respectful but firm. And so, you know, I just make it really clear I'm not interested. And I'll just say no thanks, or I'll say I'm happy with what I'm doing now. I've said that a number of times. So just get your lines ready to go and be prepared if you're getting a lot of them, and just have your response ready to go, and don't feel any guilt about it whatsoever, because I guarantee you it is a numbers game for those people and they will just keep going. But if it feels aggressive, I would just remove the connection immediately. Yeah. Yeah, no, I would still respond. I'd just say no thanks. Yeah. Good on you. Any others? All good? All right, well, enjoy the last few minutes of the Career Expo. I think it finishes at 4. And thanks for coming. See you later.